Skip must have learned this one from Houdini. Every time I looked, Alan Byrne was ripping the place apart. Petey Johnson made his last ride in New Zealand his best. As we headed for the airport bound for Sydney, I knew that everyone was thinking about Nat Young and the rest of the Australians. They were just names to most of us, but soon they'd be faces as well. Would they be as hostile as they sounded in their articles? And more important, just how good were they? The only thing I was sure of was that our guys were ready. After getting settled in Sydney, we boarded the bus which would take us to the contest. Just as the bus was about to leave, we spotted a guy whose face we'd seen in the magazines. A guy many people felt was as good as Nat Young. Hey, McTavish, come on, hurry up. He was really friendly, and we hit it off right from the start. But when we wanted to talk about the contest, he dodged and insisted on giving us the tourist treatment.
Hello, hello, Yankee surfers. Welcome to glassy, well-shaped Sydney. Population, 2,600,000. Principal exports, racehorses and tennis players. We are now entering this section known as King's Cross. If you become lonely while in Australia, this is the place to purchase companionship quickly and inexpensively.
Contest, Mac.
And this is Sydney's gift to its residents, the Harbour Toll Bridge. Built for $23 million, it's already cost us lucky motorists about $100 million to cross it.
The contest, Mac.
On your left, the fabulous Sydney Opera House, named after its designer, Sydney Clamshell.
Forget about the tour.
Let me call your attention to bustling Sydney Harbour, the most...
Hey, man, get the contest.
Aha! If you look closely, you'll observe an Australian phenomenon known as rugby. It's a fast-moving juggernaut of a game in which you start out with 13 men on a side and, if you're lucky, end up with 9 or 10.
Just answer one question. Is there a contest and are you in it?
Well, since you put it that way, there is a contest, all right. But I'm not in it.
What about Nat Young?
He's not either.
What did we come here for?
But don't let that bother you, mates. If it's a contest you'll want, there are plenty of fellas around here who'll give you all you can handle.
Oh, come on! Good day, Yanks. On behalf of the Australian Surf Federation, I want to welcome you to Long Reef. We are winding up a series of heats which will produce the 5 Australians who will meet your best 5 in the semi-finals. We'll be finished in a few minutes, so you can start getting ready.
Our first look at the Aussies sent us into deep shock. These guys were unreal. They were using boards that were 1 to 2 feet shorter than ours, and the bottoms were mostly V-shaped rather than flat. Maybe it was just as well that Young and McTavish weren't in it. It looked like we were in for a long day without them. Almost as surprising was the friendly, relaxed atmosphere on the beach. Judging by the articles the Aussies had written, we thought we'd run into all kinds of bad vibrations over here. But the people acted as if they'd never heard of the controversy. We were all pretty confused, until McTavish straightened us out.
You see, for years we've been reading that America was the capital of the surfing world. Australia was never mentioned in the same breath, yet we were just as dedicated as you. We knew that we had some highly talented surfers and board designers, and we wanted recognition. Our opportunity came at the World Contest in California. No one had given us much of a chance against the mighty Yanks, but when Nat won the contest, it meant that Australia had emerged from the shadows at last. We were all super stoked, and for most of us, that's as far as it went. There were a few guys, however, who got carried away, and they started yelling that the Yanks had been exposed as second-raters. Well, naturally, when you guys heard this, you got stirred up, and it was all just a misunderstanding. I'm sure that if we'd got together on it, things would have been sweet, but unfortunately, we were 12,000 miles apart, and so the controversy was on. And of course, it got blown out of proportion. But now that you guys are here, I hope that we can square things up between our two countries. What we need more than anything else is to get a flow of ideas back and forth so that things can develop faster, so that we can all enjoy our surfing a little bit more. Now, as to why I'm not in the contest, well, contest used to be all right, but then they got real commercial and generally uptight, so I split. My bag now is just to ride waves and build boards, and I'm much happier. I just came down to say hello to you guys and see some good surfing.
This contest is being judged under the rules of the International Surf Federation. The 6 surfers who survive will meet in the finals tomorrow at Palm Beach. Okay, all semi-finalists, in you go. Once again, from America, Mike Purpus, Skip Fry, Peter Johnson, Mickey Munoz, and Steve Bigler. And for Australia, John Money, Russell Hughes.
Robert Keneally grabbed the first wave, and he showed what the short V bottom can do. Skip waited patiently. Mickey was the first American up, and this was a typical ride. He just never did get going.
He's driving hard, as you can see.
Then Russell Hughes dropped in. Fantastic cutback.
Turns are just incredible.
Skip finally got the wave he was looking for, but he was only able to come up with a so-so ride.
On the far left, that's John Money, the rugby player. Look at those cutbacks.
A goofy named John Money wouldn't stay down for the count. It was Australian power surfing at its best. Keep driving that short board into the curl, defying it to knock you off. Petey Johnson couldn't turn on. I guess he left his best rides in New Zealand.
Driving hard, as you can see.
It seemed that the Aussies were just too tough.
He can't follow.
But suddenly, with Skip showing the way, we began to match them turn for turn. It looked like this was going to be a contest after all. Then, it happened. Skip's board was washed 200 yards into shore,
Skip Fry's lost his board. Tough break for him.
and he couldn't recover it in time to get his required rides. It was a real bummer. Mike and Steve hung in there, though, and managed to make the finals, which were held the next day at Palm Beach.
And now, here are the contestants for the finals. From America, Mike Purpus and Steve Bigler. And from Australia, John Money, Ted Spencer, Russell Hughes, and last but not least, God strike me. There goes me flaming hat. Hey, grab it someone, will you? Oh, yeah, and Midget Farrelly, of course. And now the special judges. Skip Fry, Mickey Munoz, Max Bowman, and John Whitsey. Righto, if you finalists are ready, let's hit the water!
The waves at Palm Beach were only 3 to 4 feet for the finals. They were choppy, but very usable.
While the surfers are paddling out, I'd like to go over the rules once more, ladies and gentlemen. The contest will last 45 minutes. We're using the rules of the International Surf Association. Every ride will be considered, and the surfer who performs the best during the allotted time period will be adjudged the winner. Here we go! That's Russell Hughes getting up and ripping off a beautiful kidney. He's driving hard, as you can see.
Russell Hughes was the first one up, and he trimmed nicely through the whitewater.
Those turns are just incredible.
Steve tried to get to the nose,
Got the most out of the
but the wave was too slushy.
Steve Bigler, American
John Money, who's also a professional rugby player, hauled a nice cutback. Midget Farrelly executed a couple of neat turns before kicking out. Ted Spencer cranked a turn, threw a cutback, and worked his way to the nose. Then he climbed and dropped a little on the inside section. Mike knew he was the dark horse, so he opened up with his best maneuver, a skeg first takeoff. No one in Australia had ever seen it done before, and it really knocked everybody out. Unfortunately, the wave quit on him, and he didn't get too good a score for the ride. Russell Hughes played with the curl before cutting back into it to set up a head dip. Steve tried to stall his board so he could get to the nose, but he couldn't quite make it. Mike's long board was good for nose riding, but when he tried to cut back sharply like the Aussies, his board fought him all the way. Midget, on the other hand, was using a short V-bottom, and he was able to rip off a series of effortless turns. Moni climbed and dropped off the small wall, hauled a cutback, and trimmed through the soup. By now, Mike knew he was beaten. So he decided that if he couldn't be the best surfer, he'd at least be the most popular.
Quite a comedian, that boy.
Hughes took off right, but saw a better opening to the left, and drove through the center of the wave, racking up a lot of points. Moni danced his way through a small wave. Midget pulled off some of the most incredible turns we'd ever seen. But when he tried to execute a sharp roller coaster, he wiped out and lost a lot of points. Just before the end, Ted Spencer moved into contention with a couple of really hot rides. When the finals ended, we knew that the winner was going to be an Aussie. Steve and Mike had given it their best, but they were simply outclassed. Maybe if Skip had been in it, we'd... But then again, what if Nat Young had entered? The way they talk about him around here, he must be something else. The contest had been real close, and the judges had a rough time coming up with the winner.
365E. Please move your car. You're blocking the flaming entrance.
Finally, they decided on Ted Spencer, with Midget Farrelly second and Russell Hughes third. The official prize was a flower, and Ted was really stoked. He became even more stoked when he got the unofficial prize. Later, Skip, Mickey, and McTavish got together. We were going back to the States in the morning, and McTavish wanted to make sure that we fully understood the new concepts before we left.
Well, yeah, the whole idea of that board was, as you said, was to increase maneuverability while still maintaining speed from an old board. The idea of increasing maneuverability means you can get into positions that you can get more speed. You know, so overall you're going to get more from the wave. Many things.
Fitting the board into the wave and getting it...
Yeah, by maneuverability.
Yeah.
By having really good maneuverability, you can place it in more advantageous spots. You see a power pocket sitting up on the top of the wave and you say, I've got to get up there and get that power. You just go, sit up in there and...
Choose your own track.
Yeah,
Sure,
right,
pick your own tracks.
Right.
You're just not honed out in the same old track.
That's
all the
right,
time.
straight line. You've broken the straight line. See, all waves previously had, because of the length of the board, they insisted that they work most efficiently when you turned them and placed them in a certain direction, you know, sort of aimed them like a gun or like an arrow.
Kept them in the fall line. If you went out of the fall line,
exactly.
you
They
got
felt
fouled
awkward.
up because of the...
There's too much of them,
board,
yeah,
right.
too much of them. And so you had to turn the board, aim it down the fall line, and then go in that direction as long as you possibly could, and then walk to the back of the board, then change your direction again. So, this little machine, you can stand on your speed point and still maneuver from there. The walking's cut out. You haven't got to walk back to change your direction. You can stand in the middle and go up and down and change your direction. When you see a pocket, you can be moving at full speed, and you want to get somewhere else. You haven't got to walk to the back of the board to maneuver it. You stay right where you are and just go whammy up in there and pull the power out there. Wow.
McTavish went on to diagram the V-bottom. He explained that the principles had been developed by a genius named George Greenough, a guy few people had ever heard of, but who was years ahead of other surfers. They talked all through the night and into the next morning. By now, all our questions had been answered, except those concerning Nat Young. After all, he was the guy we'd come clear across the Pacific to surf against. And ironically, we were heading home in a few hours without even having seen him. Apparently, contests weren't important to him anymore, and he was into something different. But McTavish was only able to provide a part of the story. The rest of it was up north somewhere, with Nat.
This place tends to agree with me more than any place I have ever known. Everything here is in perfect harmony. I've come to understand myself simply by looking and feeling. The contest scene is not extremely relevant to me anymore. To say it is would be a distortion of surfing as I now see it. When I arrived in California for the World Championships, I was obsessed with thoughts of trophies and fame. I'd spent years preparing myself for the only thing that mattered to me, winning the world title. When the contest was over and I returned home as Nat Young world champion, I should have been entirely satisfied. Yet for some reason, I was not. Something was still missing, and I had to find out what it was. In the ensuing months, I withdrew and took a long, long look, until finally I saw a guy getting to know himself for the first time. It was at that moment that I understood, at last, the real meaning of the surfing experience. Surfing is the finding of yourself through the medium of a surfboard. It is the perfect form of self-expression. I glide and rip with no inhibitions, totally free to express the mood I am in. I see how small I am in relation to the ocean. I'm sure it holds the answers I seek. If I can get closer to it, I can get closer to myself. I've learned that you cannot adequately express yourself in a contest. Whenever you compete, you must conform to the demands of a scoring system. This means that you are being conditioned by other people's values rather than your own. Yet almost everyone believes that contests are necessary, and that without them, there would be no progress. I too felt this way until I met Bob McTavish and George Greenough. They have no desire to win trophies or recognition. They would rather find ways to be more maneuverable and thus express themselves a little bit better. McTavish is one of the most graceful, fluid surfers I have ever known. But in spite of his ability, he felt a need to cut away from the contest scene. He was sure that progress would come from board design, not from competition. He was determined to shape a board which would place him in the most critical and exciting part of the wave. He found the time to go out day after day in an effort to apply Greenough's principles to conventional surfboards. While everyone was headed towards longer boards, McTavish was quietly building shorter, more maneuverable ones. The McTavish plastic machine is a product of Bob's dedication to performance. It brings the surfer closer than ever before to the full expression of his personality. McTavish's breakthrough would never have been possible had it not been for the ingenious concepts of George Greenough. At a glance, Greenough couldn't possibly be a surfer of any importance. I can assure you this is an illusion. George's devotion to surfing performance is exceeded only by his enormous wave-riding talent. Although he's never entered a contest, I consider him to be the greatest surfer in the world today. He's found that he cannot achieve his ideal of total maneuverability by standing up. His method of kneeling best enables him to develop his theories. He uses a hollowed-out piece of fiberglass, 5 feet long and 20 inches wide, something that looks more like a spoon than anything else. I've never seen a person anywhere capable of carving a turn as severely as George Greenough. Waiting almost totally submerged, his head barely visible, he seems no match whatsoever for the angry ocean. But once up, he owns a wave like no one else. His board, which he designed and built, makes it all possible. It has a completely flexible tail and bends in respect to the turn he wants to make. A certain amount of pressure applied to the top of the board will bend the back so many inches, allowing him total turning freedom. He must at all times respect the force of the wave, for if he exerts too much pressure, his board might collapse. As soon as he releases the pressure, his board drives flat, enabling him to accelerate. The inside of a wave holds the ocean's deepest mysteries. No one has explored them as thoroughly as George Greenough. Greenough's the one who worked out the theories in relation to how much pressure can be applied to a board. He talks in terms of power, G-forces, and flotation. But the guy dropped out of school years ago. He educated himself by reading books on physics, oceanography, and hydrodynamics, in addition to every science magazine he could lay his hands on. His ideals on life and surfing revolve around self-experiment, going out there and trying to do something. If it doesn't work, he tries something else. But no matter how complex the problem, he always comes up with the right answer. He's so self-sufficient and practical, it's frightening. I consider him to be where we're all headed. The Greenough fin is already being incorporated in most of the surfboards around the world. And I believe the boards of the future will be shorter and flexible like his. If they aren't, it'll probably be because George has invented something better. Bob and George are the unsung giants of the surfing world. Greenough works out the theories, and McTavish translates them to conventional surfboards. The only thing they cannot provide is the ideal wave to match your frame of mind. Only nature can do that. If you're in a mellow mood and things are going just right, you want to ride a wave which lends itself to the free expression of your feelings. When you find the right one, it will stimulate your inner need to become involved, to develop an affinity between you and the water. I have a golden rule that I always obey. It's don't think. Let your mind run. Your body and surfboard will follow. This is true. This is so damn true.